But would you have the courage to defy the fury of a storm to save your child, even if it meant risking your own life? Olivia didn't hesitate. When she found out her 15-year-old son was stranded on a deserted road, about to be swallowed by a violent storm, she did the unthinkable, got in her car, faced the impossible, and went after him. What this mother endured that night will show you what true love is capable of, and why some moms deserve to be called heroes, even without a cape, even without a crowd. The rain was already starting to paint the sky in dark gray tones when Olivia locked the door of the small coffee shop where she had worked for over 7 years. She lived in a small town in rural Kansas, surrounded by long roads and endless cornfields, the kind of place where life seemed to move slowly, but where people's hearts beat strong, especially hers. Olivia was one of those women who didn't need to raise her voice to be noticed. Her eyes said it all. And lately, what they said most was worry. Ever since her husband left her 6 years ago, she had been both mother and father to young Caleb, her only son, now 15. A smart kid, passionate about engines, country music, and mechanics. She did everything she could to make sure he grew up with strong values, even through hard times. She worked 2 jobs, cleaned houses on Sundays, and still found time to attend school football games, bake cookies for birthdays, and even tuck motivational notes into his lunchbox. That afternoon, in particular, Olivia had promised to pick Caleb up after scout camp, which had ended a day earlier than planned. He was in a region nearly 2 hours away, in an isolated area with dirt roads full of curves, and barely any cell service. But something unexpected happened. On the way back, the scout group was caught off guard by a severe storm warning, one of those with strong winds, lightning, hail, and even tornado risk. The group leader decided to cut the trip short and asked parents to pick up their kids before the storm hit full force. That's when Olivia's phone buzzed with a nervous voice message from her son. "Mom, it's Caleb. The storm's coming fast. The signal here is terrible. I'm by the gas station on Highway 77. Tyler's dad's truck broke down and we had to walk. I'm waiting for you here, okay? I'm fine. But hurry. Love you." She listened to that message with her heart racing. Her trembling hand gripped the steering wheel. At the coffee shop right before she left, the TV had already issued the warning. A storm cell is forming in Harper County, with golf ball-sized hail and winds up to 60 mm. Authorities advise staying off the roads. But for a brave mother like Olivia, that was not an option. She knew her son. She knew Caleb was strong, but she also knew he had a scar on his ankle from an old fracture, and if he needed to run or protect himself alone, he could get seriously hurt. More than that, it was her instinct, that thing only mothers have. Something inside her told her time was against him, and so Olivia did the unthinkable. With tires already slick and wind bending the tree branches, she got into her old 2008 Corolla with half a tank and wipers that barely cut through the curtain of rain. On the seat beside her, she placed a bottle of water, a blanket, and a flashlight, not because someone told her to, but because a mother's heart anticipates what reason wouldn't even consider. The town streets were deserted. People were sheltering at home, pulling curtains shut, locking windows. She drove with both hands firmly on the wheel, her eyes squinting against the flashes of lightning that slashed the sky. With every mile conquered, fear mixed with determination. She remembered when Caleb had his first asthma attack as a baby, and she spent the entire night standing in the ER, holding him in her arms. No food, no sleep, just waiting for him to get better. Or the Christmas he got no presents because a pipe burst and she had to spend the entire month's money on repairs. Still, she improvised with a cardboard toy truck and a dinner made of leftovers, and Caleb smiled like it was the best night in the world. She always found a way, always. But now, The road seemed to be turning against her. Water piled up fast, turning the asphalt into makeshift rivers. The car radio crackled, still managing to whisper emergency alerts. Warning, storm reaching Highway 77 area. Reports of fallen trees and zero visibility in certain sections. That was exactly where she was headed. Olivia's entire body was tense. Her palms were sweaty, her heart pounding like she was running a marathon. But still, she didn't stop. She carefully took sharp turns, swerved around fallen branches, and even paused to check a tree that nearly blocked the way. The sky darkened as if it were night. It was only 5 p.m, but it looked like 10. And then, in a moment of eerie stillness, like the world holding its breath, she saw something that froze her soul. The old truck belonging to Tyler's dad, abandoned on the shoulder. Hazard lights still blinking, but no sign of anyone. She stepped out of the car, her jacket hood shielding her face. The rain hit her back like icy stones. She called for Caleb. No response. She ran into the shallow brush beside the road, screaming his name. The flashlight barely lit the path ahead. She didn't know it, but that moment was only the beginning of a journey that would push her physical, mental, and emotional limits. It was as if the universe had decided to test everything she had learned in the last 15 years of being a mother. In that moment, caught between nature's fury and unconditional love, Olivia made a silent promise, her eyes filled with rain and desperation. "I'll find you, Caleb, even if the whole sky falls down." And with that, she moved forward, not knowing what she'd find, not knowing if there was still time, not knowing if it would still work, but with the courage of a brave mother who refuses to come home empty-handed. The storm wasn't the biggest enemy. Her son's absence was, and there, in the middle of an empty road, between thunder and hope, the true beginning of her fight was born. Night had fallen completely, but it wasn't an ordinary night. It was one of those when the sky seems to collapse and the world becomes a battlefield between thunder, wind, and the will to keep going. Olivia kept walking, her soaked sneakers sinking into the mud that had taken over the roadside. The flashlight shook in her hand, nearly dead, but she couldn't stop. Every step was a prayer, every breath, a fight against the fear that kept growing. Her heart felt like it was guided by an invisible radar, tuned to only one thing: finding Caleb. The memory of the last time she saw him, backpack on his shoulders, smiling as he climbed into his friend's truck, echoed like a punch to her chest. In that moment, she never imagined that hours later, she'd be alone, in the middle of a storm, eyes desperately searching for that same smile. The road was a never-ending maze. Fallen trees, signs twisted by the wind, and darkness that seemed to swallow everything in front of her. Her phone had lost signal nearly 40 minutes ago. The only thing keeping her on her feet was love. That raw, firm, desperate love that only a brave mother understands. Then she saw it. A trail of footprints marked in the mud, leading toward an old abandoned barn about 300 yards from the road. The wooden structure looked like it could collapse at any moment. But in that place, there was hope. Olivia ran, stumbling, her knee scraping the ground as she slipped in a puddle. She didn't feel the pain. There was no time. She shoved the rusty door open. The sound thundered into the empty space. Inside, there was darkness and the smell of damp wood. "Caleb!" she shouted. Her voice cracked, blending with the storm outside. And then, a reply. "Mom." That whisper was everything. In the back, huddled behind an old tractor covered with a tarp, there he was, soaked clothes, wide eyes, trembling. Beside him, Tyler, his friend, trying to shield them both with a silver emergency blanket. "Mom!" Caleb ran to her, stumbling along the way. She held him like she was holding the world. "I'm here, son. Everything's okay now," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. But it wasn't okay. Not yet. The storm had worsened. Trees were being uprooted. The wind howled like a furious lament, and Olivia knew it was too dangerous to leave at that moment. They'd have to wait. They spent almost an hour inside, with the structure groaning and the tension rising with every thunderclap. Olivia trembled, but pretended to be calm. She sat on the floor with both boys, arms wrapped around them, shielding them with her own body like a human shield. She told stories. She remembered the day Caleb was born. She said everything was going to be all right. On the outside, she was composed. Inside, a storm of doubt. What if the barn didn't hold? What if the flooding reached them? What if? But Olivia couldn't show that. Not now. Then the structure cracked loudly. A beam fell less than a yard from where they were. It was time to go. The storm seemed to take a brief breath. That would be their only chance to move. With courage, she tied the tarp around the boys, improvising a sort of cape. She grabbed the dying flashlight, tucked the phone into her bra, in the hope it might still work later, and said, "Let's go. We're going slow. I'll lead. Just trust me, okay?" The boys nodded. The trek back to the road was the most dangerous moment of the night. They walked across the soaked field, avoiding downed power lines, crossing over trenches that used to be just holes in the dirt. Olivia went ahead, clearing the path, making sure Caleb didn't put too much weight on his injured leg. With each step, she silently spoke to God, asking only for the chance to make it out alive with both boys. And then, the car. The old Corolla was where she had left it, caked in mud up to the wheels, but intact. She got them inside, covered them with the blanket, and tried to start the engine. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. A third time. The car coughed, stuttered, then started. Olivia let out a cry of relief, but the challenge wasn't over yet. The road now looked like a flowing river. She knew that if she missed a curve, they could slide. If she went too slow, the car might stall. If she sped up too much, she'd lose control. But with her son by her side, she transformed. It was as if fear had given way to a primal strength. With each curve conquered, a tear fell. But she didn't cry from weakness. She cried because she was doing something most people would never understand. Facing death with the courage of someone who loves more than they fear. She knew no one would ever fully know what she endured that night. No one would see the cut on her ankle, the scraped knee, the trembling fingers on the steering wheel. But Caleb would know, and maybe, one day, he'd tell someone the story. He'd tell them about the mother who drove through a storm, who ignored safety warnings, who entered a collapsing barn and came out with 2 teens alive. He'd tell them about the woman who, even exhausted, wounded, and terrified, didn't think twice before facing it all for her son's life. The town appeared on the horizon like a mirage. The lights of the first street lamps signaled that they had made it. They arrived at the hospital shortly after midnight, all 3 covered in mud, exhausted, but safe. Caleb had a mild ankle sprain, a few scratches, and was cold. Tyler had only a cut on his arm. Olivia, well, she didn't want to be examined, said she was fine. But the nurse noticed something was wrong. Her blood pressure was low, her eyes red. She was dehydrated and had a deep cut on her knee. When the nurse asked why she hadn't stopped earlier, Olivia just smiled and said, "Because he needed me, and when he needs me, nothing else matters." That was it. There, on a hospital bed, surrounded by cold walls and bright lights. She looked like a warrior who had just returned from war. But even then, she didn't complain, because brave mothers don't seek applause. They seek their children, even when the world says to stop, even when the body says, "I can't go on," even when everything seems against them. That was the longest night of Olivia's life, but also the one that proved, more than ever, the strength she carried inside. And still, the greatest lesson of that journey was yet to come. The following days were filled with deep silence mixed with sighs of relief. After the storm, after the chaos, after the scare, came the void. That kind of emptiness that only shows up when everything could have ended, but didn't. Olivia spent 2 days in the hospital, not because her injuries were severe, but because when everything ends, the body feels what the soul had been holding. Exhaustion came like a wave, and the doctor insisted she rest. She gave in, not for herself, but because she knew Caleb needed to see her strong again. Caleb, in turn, became a different boy after that night. He had always respected his mother. Of course, he always had. But something had shifted. It was different now. It was as if, for the first time, he had seen the woman behind the routine, behind the work uniform, behind the tired eyes. He had seen the warrior. When he walked into her hospital room with a cafeteria tray and a clumsy drawing that said, "My hero," Olivia couldn't hold back anymore. She cried for the first time. Cried from relief, from love, from everything she'd held in during the storm. They spent the rest of that day sitting together. They said little. They didn't have to. It was just presence. The story of the mother who braved a storm to save her son quickly spread through the town. The school principal found out. The neighbors told others. A local reporter even knocked on her door, asking for an interview. But Olivia declined. "I did what any brave mother would do," she said with a shy smile. "The only difference is that this time, the road gave me the chance to bring him back in my arms. And as life doesn't stop, a few days later she was already back at work." One customer at the cafe left a generous tip after hearing the story. Another paid for his coffee and said, "You're an inspiration, ma'am." But Olivia didn't see herself as an inspiration. She saw herself as a mother. Nothing more. The next week, something different happened. Caleb came home early after school. He was sweaty, his face red, his hands covered in grease. "Where have you been, boy?" Olivia asked, a little worried. He answered with a smile. "At Mr. Riley's shop. He let me help with the engines. Said I've got a knack for it." Olivia was surprised. She had never seen her son so excited about anything other than video games. But there was a light in his eyes she recognized. The passion he'd always had for fixing things was now finding a new path. From that point on, Caleb started spending more time there. After school, he went straight to the shop. He learned. He asked questions. He made mistakes. He fixed them. One day, he came home with an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "A letter. I got accepted into a technical mechanics program. Full scholarship. Starts in January." Olivia stayed quiet. So many things rushed through her mind in that moment. The baby she used to rock to sleep in the middle of the night. The little boy who hurt his ankle learning to skateboard. The teenager now looking her in the eyes and saying, "I want to do something with my life." And she knew, right then, that it had all been worth it. At the school ceremony, a few months later, Caleb walked on stage to receive a Perseverance Award. In front of everyone, with a shaky voice and a trembling piece of paper in hand, he said, "This award isn't mine. It's my mom's. She's the reason I'm here. She drove through a storm, literally, to save me. And I promised myself I'd never let her face anything like that alone again." There were parents in tears, teachers with misty eyes, and a mother sitting in the front row, heart pounding with pride. The months turned into a year, and during that time, Caleb became a dedicated, hard-working, kind young man. And Olivia, she kept on with her life, still had the same bills, the same double shifts, but with a lighter heart. Because now, in her son's eyes, she saw a flame that wouldn't go out again. But as if life wanted to give a small nod of gratitude for everything she'd done, something surprising happened. That same winter, a letter arrived, a brown envelope with a state seal. When she opened it, Olivia thought it was a bill, or something like that. But it wasn't. It was a nomination. Someone, probably from the school or the hospital, had nominated her for a county award for Civilian Heroic Act. She laughed, thought it was too much, but Caleb convinced her to go. At the town hall auditorium, in front of a modest but sincere crowd, she received a small medal and a certificate. When it came time for her speech, she hesitated, then took the microphone and said, "I'm not a hero. I'm just a mom. But being a mom is just that. It's walking straight into the pain, even when fear tells you to run. It's not thinking twice when your child calls. It's being there, even when everything says you can't." And she received a standing ovation. A few days later, quietly, she placed the certificate in a simple frame and hung it on the living room wall. Not out of vanity, but because every time she doubted herself, she wanted to remember she faced a storm, and she won. And it wasn't just for Caleb. It was for everything she believed in, for every sleepless night, for every penny counted, for every, "It's gonna be okay," even when she wasn't sure it would be. Today, Caleb is 18. He is in his second year of the technical program, works part-time at the shop, and always says he's going to open his own business one day. And whenever he can, he tells the story of the night his mom saved him, not like someone telling an adventure, but like someone who witnessed a miracle. And Olivia, she's still who she's always been, a mother, the kind who, when everything goes dark, can light the way with her silent courage. If this story touched your heart, if you also believe that a brave mother's love is the most powerful force there is, then subscribe to the Stories of Brave Mothers channel. Leave your like. Share it with someone who needs a reminder of what true love can do. And comment below, do you know a mother like this? Because every time this story is told, more mothers are honored. And the world needs to hear more about courage, about sacrifice, and about this kind of love that never gives up, even when everything seems impossible.